Hello everyone. I've been knitting for about 18 years at this point. So you can imagine during that time I've had people come up to me and ask me to teach them how to knit. And whether I've been successful in that, who's to say? I don't really know. Um, but when you're teaching someone how to knit, uh, the important thing, like one of the important things to do is to make sure that they have their own set of needles that are theirs. Because if they don't have a set of needles that they can just take with them and they can practice when you're not around, they're not going to remember how to knit. And when I was younger, I didn't have as many needles as I have now. Like now I have so many needles, I'm not going to blink an eye if I have one break on me or if a couple dozen go missing. But back when I was a little bit more frugal, I found a very easy solution to this. I would often get them a set of chopsticks, just like chopsticks you would get from a Chinese restaurant takeout. Because if you look at them, they're the perfect shape. They're kind of tapered at one end because you want to be able to pick up food like that. And they're already relatively sanded down. So you don't have to worry about splinters and you don't have to worry about the yarn catching on it. And usually when you get chopsticks, this pair, not as much. Like if I lean it against the table, you can see there's some bit of a difference, but they're usually around the same size and the same width. This is about as close as you can get to having knitting needles without buying actual knitting needles. So I'm gonna just make a few, make a couple rows just so you can see what it looks like. I think I'm going to use the cable cast on for this because when I'm making a project, that's the cast on I would typically use. It's a little bit different than the cast on I usually use on these videos because I'm trying to be loose and I'm trying to fit around all sorts of odd things. And the yarn does seem to be catching on this a little bit, but chopsticks are made out of wood, so you can always just sand them down, or you can whittle part of it down with a pocket knife, although I've never cared about chopstick needles enough to do that. How many stitches do I got? 7. Yeah, we'll work with 7. The pair of knitting needles that I learned on were actually a set of chopsticks. Or maybe they were wooden skewers. It was one of the two. When I learned how to knit, when it finally took effect the second time around, because it took me 2 times to actually figure out how to knit. The first time was a complete fail. It was in a classroom setting, and the teacher had to provide a lot of knitting needles for the entire class. So as you can imagine, chopsticks would be cheaper in that regard than actual knitting needles. And we also made stoppers for the ends. I didn't bother putting stoppers on these ends because I know I'm coordinated enough to keep the knitting on the needles without them. But for my first set of knitting needles, it was also a craft project because she got sculpty clay and she had us make our stoppers, and I made frogs, obviously, on the ends, although I made parts of it too thin and parts of the frogs broke off. I remember someone else made ballet shoes, and people made things pertain to their interests. They put it on the end. But even with chopsticks, like, it doesn't have to be super high tech, you know? You could glue on a bead, or the simplest thing that you can do is just get like 2 rubber bands and wrap them around. Because the rubber bands are going to stop the knitting from going away. And there you have it. Pretty indistinguishable from actually having used knitting needles. So yeah, like if you need knitting needles in a pinch, chopsticks will do. Anyway, that was today's entertainment. Have a nice day.